What is the creation of a film from raw earth and furious intention? But a balletic tumult, a sympathetic pandemonium, a consecration by artists, a hope, a dream that a bare patch of warehouse floor could be transformed into an Apollonian vessel by actors, directors, writers, and producers, set decorators, carpenters, caterers, and makeup artists, calling out together for the birth of a film. Well, it's not a film yet because some editor somewhere has to put the footage. They're more of a laborer than an artist, really, because all he does is follow the specific instructions of the producers and directors, these paragons of virtuous intensity, dancing the dancing mortal.
Sure, production can be an incredibly stressful period that relies on the talent and dedication of more than just a handful of people in order for it to really pay off. But you're crazy if you think for 1 second that once rap is called, the hard part's over. You think editing is some paint-by-numbers game that only requires putting shots in order according to a script? It goes way beyond that, to the point where I would argue it's the point in the process where the film is actually made. Yeah, it's important to get great footage, but that footage loses all of its power if it's not cut together in a way that serves it the best. Without the proper timing, the funniest jokes in a comedy can fall flat, and the most intense performance in a drama can wilt away into a pile of crud. Would you like to know more? Consider this. Film as a medium was never intended for the purpose of telling stories in the first place. People were so freaked out by the technology of moving pictures that, for a while anyway, they were happy enough to just stare in awe at these projections of horses pulling a wagon or people dancing or whatever. At that time, films were all one long shot, literally moving photographs, or motion pictures, if you will. Then, about 100 years ago, give or take, some dude who worked for Thomas Edison thought it might be cool to cut a few shots together into a scene. And then he cut a few scenes together into a linear narrative sequence. So all of a sudden, by taking scissors to their movie, filmmakers discovered that they had the power to inject drama and suspense into footage that was already speaking volumes to their audience. And then by the 1920s, film editing gets really sophisticated. A guy by the name of Lev Kuleshov from Soviet Russia decides to really explore the power of film editing by conducting an experiment. He showed 3 separate films to 3 separate audiences and then gauged their reactions. Kind of like a test screening, only he wasn't trying to figure out if a bunch of comic book nerds would freak out if they got rid of the giant squid. I've made 3 short films of my own to show you what Kuleshov did. Here's the first one. And here's the second one. And finally, here's the last one. So what he basically did was he took some stock footage that was lying around. A guy's face, a bowl of soup, a pretty girl, and a tombstone. He used the exact same shot of the guy's face in all 3 movies, but changed the shot that followed to soup, girl, and tombstone, respectively. Want to know how the audience reacted? Audience A was convinced that this guy was jonesing for soup. Clearly, the look on his face was that of desperation and hunger. Audience B came out of the theater raving about his performance of a man pining for a love he can never have. What a fine actor. While Audience C could totally relate to his feeling of loss. Clearly, he's been emotionally crushed by the death of a loved one. Big deal, right? Yeah, actually it is. Psychologically speaking, sticking 2 shots together in succession creates a contextual relationship in the mind of the viewer. It's automatic. And despite how sophisticated 21st century audiences might be, they're still going to make those contextual leaps inside their brains. You know, take the training montage from Rocky, for example. 1 second he's lifting weights, and then he's running down the street, and then he's punching a side of beef in a meat locker. Now, as far as I know, Rocky Balboa didn't have any teleportation powers to speak of. So how does he jump around from place to place so fast? He's not. The montage is cut in a specific way so that subconsciously you're given the impression that time is being compressed. He's actually training really hard over the course of days and weeks, doing different things in different places. This is the Kuleshov effect in its most basic form. But it's also there in any other cut you'll see as well, whether you're dealing with flashbacks, or showing two bits of action that are happening simultaneously, or even in a very simple two-character dialogue scene. The viewer's human brain will never stop trying to link everything it sees together in a way that makes logical sense. But it's solely up to the editor to communicate to the viewer in a way that gets the message across clearly and stylishly, no matter what your footage looks like. And yeah, it's really hard work. It would have to be. It's filmmaking in the most literal sense of the word.